everybody to Fat City Vinyl. My name is Doug if you're just tuning in for the first time. This will be another episode of Fat City Spinout, my series of recent arrivals to the collection, spins from the shelves, what have you. My channel tends to be strongly identified with reggae, which is a big focus of my videos, but in this series I'll mix up some other genres as well. And my goal with this series is kind of keep an eye on the length, but go into a bit more depth in some of the records I show, maybe incorporate some more needle drops. You might see me try to play around with the format a bit to accomplish these goals and try and keep the time length moderate. So we're going to get right into it. I recently went down to the record shops in my area for the first time in 2021 for quite a few months. First visit, had some luck in the cheap bins at one of my favorite shops. I built up a lot of my collection that way, a lot of the rock side of it. One group I'd been interested in checking out, I found two records by. That is Steel Eye Span. They were kind of an offshoot of Fairport Convention. One of the founding members was Ashley Hutchins, who had been in that group. And then they also pursued a similar, very UK folk influenced direction with some added rock instrumentation as time went on. And I found two records by them. Below the Salt from 1972. Covers are kind of beat up on these. These were cheap bin finds. Chrysalis label, kind of cheap bins at this store. The odd one is like around the $10 mark, but most of the records there will be like 3, 4, 5, around that. And I also found Commoner's Crown from a couple of years later. UK folk group, kind of a revolving lineup. These albums featuring Maddie Pryor on lead vocals, but earlier in their history they had two female lead singers before some kind of splits in the band, lineup shuffles. But traditional songs with some kind of flashes of electric rock guitar at points in here, giving a bit of an edge, but very messed up songs of adultery, punishment, child murder, all kinds of lurid stories going on in these traditional British folk tales. Must have been kind of the pulp stories of their day. Interesting to check out Steel Eye Span, that UK folk scene of the late 1960s, early 1970s is something I'm kind of interested to investigate when I come across something in my area. Same day, I found Earth Opera. You can tell this is probably a psychedelic album. Around 1968, I believe this one is from, on the Elektra label. Earth Opera was a band out of Boston, gold Elektra label. Again, cheap bin find here, very nice playing condition. Boston band, kind of formed around Peter Rowan, who writes all the songs. Debut album here, kind of Donovan influenced, I would say, very folky, kind of Baroque in places, still kind of absorbing this one. Wouldn't say it's quite a classic, but interesting to check out. Home of the Brave, quite an obvious anti-war tune on there. Another band I've been interested to investigate further is Caravan. Quite a few videos back, probably last year, I showed one album I found by them, my first, at the very same store in the cheap bins as well. That was Blind Dog of St. Dunstan's. I'd heard about Caravan through various posts, was never really a group that was on my radar before. I checked that one out and quite enjoyed it actually, so I was kind of eager to investigate more by them. And this day I found Waterloo Lily from 1972, gatefold pressing, again cheap bins. And the London label, very nice playing condition, very nice sound on this one. Caravan, part of the Canterbury scene, kind of lumped in with progressive rock, I guess you would say, unlike a lot of progressive bands which have a tendency to show off, to be very, very flashy in their instrumentation. This band has a sound very jazz influenced on this album for sure. A lot of instrumental tracks, very extended length, where they go into a lot of jazz style improvisation, lots of extended songs, as I said. Only a couple, I think, with lyrics or singing of any extent, but quite a very British style of songwriting when they do. Caravan. This is the one immediately following their In the Land of Grey and Pink album, which I've seen shown many times. Kind of interested to get into that one next. Quite enjoy these guys, what I've heard of them so far. Again, they have a sound, they stick to it, that they investigate without being showy or pretentious. Another cheap bin find, some reggae this time. This is one I had never owned before. Rita Marley, Who Feels It Knows It. Title track written by the late Bunny Wailer. This appeared 1981 on the Shanachie label. Beautiful condition on the vinyl here. Just a little wear on the cover. This was $3 in the cheap bins. Couldn't really pass it up for that price. I do have the big hit One Draw, her big solo hit. I have that on the 12-inch single, but I'd never heard the LP. It's okay. I probably wouldn't pay too much more for it. Good Morning Ja, written by Ricky Walters, is a good one I hadn't heard before, as well as covering a couple of her late husband's songs, Robert Nesta Marley, and of course lots of Wailers on board on the instrumental side of things as well. Debut solo LP by Rita Marley, the widow of the late Bob Marley. Something Headley, aka another fat bearded man talking about records, said in a comment recently, had me thinking about the Rykodisc label, not a label I have too much of in my collection or come across too frequently, but it kind of turned on the light bulb over the head that I did have this CD. Had this for many years, found this in a used CD store, which used to exist on a major downtown corner called Charlie's. We'd go down to the clubbing district, which was right there, and you were waiting for the doors to open. You'd get a bite to eat, maybe pop in at Charlie's and have a browse in the used CDs. And one day I picked up this. I didn't realize the green tinted jewel case was actually a trademark of the Rykodisc label. I thought maybe somebody had replaced it along the way. This is an album by Mikey Dread, who is well known for his work with rock band The Clash. He was also a radio host, TV presenter, multifaceted artist. He had got his start in Jamaica in the 1970s as host of a late night radio show called Dread at the Controls, where he played raw roots reggae and dub, threw in humorous jingles and all kinds of effects. The show caused a sensation. Tapes of it were traded internationally, and he soon branched out into recording as an artist, producing other artists, had a long-standing career, sadly passed away in 2008 from a brain tumor. But this is him in the early 1990s. 1992 this came out, never reissued. It's never come out on vinyl. From a later period of his career, often overlooked, not mentioned too much, but was kind of my introduction to him. His classic early works were out of print, unavailable at that time, so I initially got into him more through his more current works. And this finds him recording largely between London and Tucson, Arizona, of all places, with a variety of players, different sounds, incorporating programmed drum beats with live bass. He's got Josh Shaka, of all people, playing bass on a couple of tracks here on the London sessions, and quite a organic roots sound, particularly on the Arizona tracks. By this point, the reggae sound had achieved more of a synthesis between the technological aspects and the live roots feel. I'm going to play you one of my favorite tracks off of here. This is the only one recorded in Jamaica. It's called Muscle Up, talking here about different kind of fitness, not the physical kind. My favorite track off the album, Better and Better. And I got to tell him that in an email once. Sent me an autographed photo, 2001. Looking every day, but we can't find a job. But we're not gonna kill, we're not gonna rob, we're gonna muscle up. Mikey in an uplifting mood. Often overlooked corner of his discography. Obsession by Mikey Dread. Title track, looking at the darker side of love from the male point of view. And looking into some lovers rock. Some roots and culture for sure. 1990s saw a big resurgence of roots and culture themes in reggae. But Mikey, of course, had been there from the beginning. Only other Rykodisc album I think I have is this David Bowie one, again with the green tinted jewel case. Probably the first time I've ever shown any David Bowie on my channel. Do have some. Ziggy Stardust, the motion picture. I've talked in previous clips about keeping up with the Black Jazz label reissues put out since 2020 by Real Gone Music. A couple more to share with you today. The piano playing of Black Jazz label co-founder Gene Russell, as heard here, from the very first album put out by the Black Jazz label. New Directions by Gene Russell, who co-founded the Black Jazz label in the early 70s with the express purpose of showcasing only African American musicians. Here in a piano-based group, also featuring Henry Franklin on bass. Entirely cover versions on this album, New Directions. This was first put out as the first reissue in the series in a special edition for Record Store Day of 2020. Didn't manage to get that copy, but I did manage to grab the standard black vinyl later on, which we're hearing now. Gene Russell, New Direction. Kind of soul jazz, groove-based piano jazz format here. Also picked up more recently, Gene Russell, Talk to My Lady, second and final album by himself that he put out on Black Jazz. And this one is on clear with black splatter vinyl. Originally released 1973, this one. Switching between Steinway and electric piano. Gene Russell, Black Jazz. Kind of an oddity now. I've been picking up a lot of reissues from the Real Gone Music label, starting off with their Black Jazz series, but expanding to a couple other pieces from other genres. It's a reggae one they put out. From the vaults of Trojan Records, originally released in the UK in 1972. Somewhat well thought of by fans of that era of reggae and Trojan Records, with respectable prices being fetched for original copies. This is the Star Trek LP by the Vulcans. Vulcans aren't a real band. It's a project put together using tracks sourced from Jamaican producers, mainly Bunny Lee, who released their music through Trojan Records in the UK. Was kind of helmed by Joe Manzano, Des Bryan, and Webster Schroeder, who all worked for Trojan Records. Kind of a revenue earner. They put these tracks together, and what they did was got a progressive rocker named Ken Elliott to overdub synthesizer lines with the ARP 2600 synth over top of it. And they called it Star Trek to cash in on the sci-fi craze. So this track right here, the bass line is the same as that one used for Johnny Clark's big hit, Enter Into His Gates and Praise, with praise, produced by Bunny Lee in the Flying Cymbals style in Jamaica. Now becomes the title track, Star Trek by the Vulcans. With these woozy sort of synth lines going on for a kind of a spacey, cosmic feel. Joe Kidd, touching on pirate movies, I guess, is actually the rhythm track for a late, almost one of the final hits by the great singer Slim Smith, entitled The Time Has Come, while further tracks touch on Dark Shadows, the vampire-themed TV series of the time, Dracula, Shanghai, touching on the Kung Fu movies of the early 70s, just covering all the pop culture bases of the time. Kind of a silly, cheesy, yet somehow fun album, which is still kind of well regarded today. And they put this out on a kind of a cool maroon deep space vinyl, they call it, with a sleeve originally designed by Trojan freelancer Dave Field. Star Trek by the Vulcans. Right, so that's what I've got for you today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure and tune in next time when I'll have more for you. And hope everybody's doing well out there. Cheers.